Welcome to Building Texas with Justin McKenzie and Summer Babarek. Sponsored by the Boerne-Kendall County Economic Development Corporation and Das Greenhouse. And now, here's your host, Justin McKenzie.
Welcome to Building Texas, where we sit down with the most interesting people making an impact locally and around the state. I'm Justin McKenzie, and I'll be introducing you to the builders, creators, entrepreneurs serving your community and building the big ideas that are building Texas. You're on Boerne Radio 103.9. We are here this morning with Ben Thatcher, the city manager for the city of Boerne. Ben, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. It's a pleasure. I'm excited about this conversation.
Well, we're going to start with the opening question of how are you building Texas? But I want to give a little bit of an introduction about who is Ben and how did you get to Boerne?
Okay, yeah, I'll start off really quickly, give you my 30-second elevator pitch. Ben Thatcher, I have just hit my 3-year mark with the city of Boerne. Previously, I was with another city up in North Texas for about 18 years. I've been in local government for almost 22 years. I actually worked with another city of Denton, city of Southlake, both in the North Texas area. COVID hit. We weren't looking to move. My family and I, we had a great community where we were at, but Boerne has always had a strong nostalgia aspect to it. And when that opening came out, there was just something that hit me that thought, hey, let's really take a serious look at coming down to Boerne. And blessed and fortunate to have this opportunity. And it, right in the middle of COVID, trying to figure that out. Then with these winter storms that we've had, that's not uncharacteristic for typical communities. And so we've had a lot of uncertainty with certain issues we've had to deal with. And so, but it's been fun. My family's enjoyed it. I got 4 boys. 2 have graduated from Boerne Champion. 2 little ones going through the school system.
Well, we really got to know each other at the baseball fields.
Right, Boerne Little League.
Boerne Little League. How do you get into coaching? And part of your strategy as an executive in the city is coaching.
Right.
So tell me, how do you make that jump?
So I'll tell you really quickly. I got 4 boys. As I said earlier, I grew up playing baseball, loved Little League, a lot of life lessons learned on any type of ball field, but really for me it was baseball. Played through high school, and then when I had my own family, I thought having spare time to spend with your kids is not always easily available, and so I thought if I could do it on a baseball field, which I had a strong passion for, and in teaching and coaching, and so that's been fun with my boys. Now, what I've realized in the city world is that we all have our natural strengths. We bring those to whatever role we're in. But at the city world, I try to incorporate as much of those natural strengths. And so that is coaching. So I do a lot of spending a lot of time training, teaching, coaching, trying to make sure folks are in the right spots, doing the right things. Really, with an organization of 300 employees, we're about a $100 million operation. So I take it very seriously to make sure we're as efficient as possible, doing the right things. And so that's not uncommon for even a sport, a team environment where a coach is trying to make sure everyone's doing the right things.
It's interesting when you put it into the context of 100 people on your team, you're running a large revenue base, about $100 million a year. I learned so much coming into City Hall with a 2nd grade field trip where we got to sit in the big room and see the big chairs. But it was a little bit shocking to me how little the chaperones, the kids, anybody in that room knew about how the city worked and what the city's responsibility was, what the mayor's responsibility is, city managers. Some of that's lost in translation. I think my biggest takeaway from that 2nd grade field trip as an adult was that the mayor's really responsible for running 2 meetings a month, which is city council meetings. The rest of that is executed by the 100 team members that you talked about on your team. Help me understand that gap and help our listeners understand where's the breakdown. What they see the mayor, they see the city council, but where does the work really get done?
Right. That was a fun activity. We do those frequently for schools. I always enjoy those opportunities so they can see how things are done. I love letting the kids sit up behind the council dais to get their pictures. Even across Texas, cities are all structured a little differently. Cities are a creature of the state. They were formed by the state. We're fortunate that we are a home rule city. That means we can kind of chart our own course as long as it doesn't conflict with state law. There's another type of city in Texas called a general law city, which means a city's generally, under 5,000 population, smaller cities. You can't do a whole lot of other outside the box type thinking that a home rule city can do. You can only do what the state actually prescribes you to do. And so that's even different from state to state across the country. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine from Nevada who works for the city of North Las Vegas. They're a completely different setup. They're a Dillon law city. And so we were comparing notes notes contrasting what I can do in a home rule city versus what he can do in a Dillon law city. And so it's just different from across the country. So when you have folks that move here from a different part of the state, they're familiar with their local government, maybe in New England where that city actually is the school district too, provides that service. We don't do that, right? In Texas, independence is a strong characteristic of a lot of governing entities in the state. So you have all these school districts that are independent-minded. You have all these county governments that are different than the cities. Other areas of the country, there might be cities and consolidated city and county governments. That doesn't exist in Texas, right? So I think for a lot of folks, if they've moved here, migrated from another state, they're familiar with that and not really sure how it works in Texas. I do use every opportunity I can with any group to try to talk about what we do in Boerne. What does the service palette look like that we offer? How we're striving for excellence in those services? And then also make the connection to the state legislature, right? Because we are bound by state law on what we can and can't do. And I think people are often surprised how much we are limited. Even here in Boerne, they think we can just say no to this or we can go out and do that. But at the end of the day, there's probably a state law that really reins us in.
You're listening to Building Texas on Boerne Radio 103.9. We're sitting here with the city manager for the city of Boerne, Ben Thatcher, and we're really learning more about how the city works. And Boerne is a home rule city. So as we talk about Building Texas, Ben, in your role, how are you building our part of Texas here in the city of Boerne?
Yeah, great question. I often will tell my employees, as a little tagline from our mission statement, that we are building a premier hill country community. And I often tell folks too who maybe not understand what a city manager does, that I'm all about building quality of life. So first, right away when I came here in 2020, I wanted to understand what the city council's expectations were. I wanted to understand what the community, the residents, the city residents were seeking in their city government. And from there, we create a mission statement, a vision statement, and we go about providing high quality services. That looks and feels differently from community to community. We have a lot of similarities with other hill country communities, from Kerrville to Fredericksburg to Bandera, but we're all different, right? We all have our niche that we kind of capitalize on. I think for us in Boerne, we have great location. A lot of people want to be here because of a fantastic school district. A lot of people like being in a small town with unique charm and character, with great environmental aspects, but still be 25 minutes from the airport, 30 minutes from the airport. That is a huge asset for us. So location right there is a big check mark. Great school district, a big check mark. When I look at cities that are successful across the country, they have a couple things. They have an outstanding park system. We have a great park system, but we have also a lot of other just great, unique outdoor spaces that may not even be city-owned assets, but still there's state parks around. There's the nature center. We have a great trail system. The other aspect of a great community is a great school district. We have that. A third aspect is either a strong business climate or a great nonprofit climate, and we have both of those in this community. So we have all the great fundamental ingredients to create a great community. And so my job, I see my role as making sure we enhance those opportunities, we capitalize on those opportunities, and we go about building great quality of life here in Boerne. That doesn't detract from that uniqueness that is Boerne. It's hard to characterize that to someone who's never been to Boerne, but once you've come here and you see the independent spirit that is here, but also at the same time, there's this collectiveness to be a part of a group to do great things on behalf of the community. That's pretty unique for a Texas community.
I appreciate that understanding. And again, thank you for joining us on Boerne Radio 103.9. We're visiting with Ben Thatcher here today. And after the break, we're going to come back and really dive into how decisions are made. I think there is a long-term vision here that we're executing, but I want to understand how listeners and I can get involved and impact that plan. So as we come back from break, we'll learn more from Ben Thatcher with the City of Boerne. This is Justin McKenzie from Building Texas. Today's segment is brought to you by Das Greenhouse. Das Greenhouse is a business incubator launched here in Boerne to serve our local community. Das Greenhouse is a place where you can come to grow your idea. Our goal is to make Boerne accessible to people who are looking to grow a business, expand a business, or learn more about what's out there in their community and get involved. Visit us at dasgreenhouse.org or come by and visit us at 7 Upper Balcones Creek, Boerne, Texas. Welcome back to Boerne Radio 103.9. This is Building Texas, and we're sitting down with Ben Thatcher, the city manager for the city of Boerne. And before the break, we were talking about what really makes our community successful, what's setting the tone for the region that we're in and our role in that region. Ben, when you wake up in the morning, you can't decide to move the stoplights. So how do things get planned and projects get supported, whether that's funded or community involvement? Where does your everyday call to action come from?
Right. So fantastic question. I think it starts right off with the city council, right? I have a great understanding with the city council that we're going to be very deliberate in our approach to providing city services. We're going to be very strategic. A lot of communities who may not tack their work from that angle, and they will be responsive to or reactive to things that happen, right? Oh, here's this opportunity. We need to go chase that. We need to go find money to go do that. I've told my city council that we are going to be master plan oriented. We have some master plans. That was another great aspect that recruited me here that was attractive. I didn't want to come to a community that didn't understand that approach. And Boerne already had a lot of master plans in place. And so when you have master plans and you are deliberate about implementing those master plans, then that makes your job a little more focused on what it is you're going to do. Now, how you go about creating those master plans is just as important. And here with the city of Boerne, whether it's the Parks Master Plan, the Transportation Thoroughfare Plan, the Economic Development Plan, all kinds of the Library Master Plan, those all are generated with several recommendations that are just staff-led. It's not like staff said, hey, you know what, we ought to do this. It is driven by a lot of feedback from our residents, a lot of feedback from patrons, a lot of feedback from businesses. Whatever the master plan focus is, we have a lot of what I call community engagement that leads into that creates the recommendations that ultimately are approved by city council into that master plan. So once we have those master plans approved, then I work with staff on an annual basis to understand, okay, which recommendations are we going to get done this year? What can we reasonably fund in the budget? And then we put a plan of action, a business plan, so to speak, on how we're going to implement those recommendations. Sometimes certain master plans might take a decade to implement because they're expensive. Others we might be able to do in 3 to 5 years. The other key piece of that, master plans is one aspect of it. The other piece that I'm proud that we've been able to implement is a cadence of citizen surveys. We do those every 2 years. We do that to understand the satisfaction levels of our residents on the services they receive from the city departments, but also to understand, is there something we're missing? Is there something they'd like us to do that we've not considered? Those two things right there help us strategically figure out how to be very deliberate in our approach, really very precise on what we need to be offering to our community.
So if I'm hearing you right, a person can be most involved in that master plan by responding to a survey.
Absolutely.
And getting active and hearing their voice or sharing their voice through the survey mechanism.
Absolutely. In fact, most recently with the bond election that we had last year, we knew that we needed to move forward with some sort of capital bond program. That was the direction by the city council. They, some communities might appoint a resident-led committee to identify those projects. And we talked about that possibility, but I told the city council, we have all these master plans that have already been approved that we've not implemented yet. So let's go through and look at all these recommendations, and you guys go through and make your priority list. At the same time, I'm getting ready to do a citizen survey. So let me do some gauging based on that survey feedback and kind of align the two together. And that's what ultimately led the prioritization of which projects got proposed in that election last November that got a 64% approval rating. So right there, making that connection with that exercise on how to move projects forward for the voters' approval, help build credibility, transparency, great community engagement. We had several informational meetings where residents could come forward at council meetings and other meetings to ask questions about projects. So I feel like the success of that election, that initiative, was because of that connection to community engagement through those citizen surveys and so forth. And that's how we're going to go about our work every year for the foreseeable future.
So in our community, we've really grown rapidly in the last 5 years. I think COVID drew a lot of people out of larger city centers and into communities like ours around the state. How do you engage, and where do you encourage someone that's new here to go learn more about how the city of Boerne operates, and if they live in the city of Boerne or maybe they live in the county?
So yeah, to that last point, there's about 60,000 Boerne residents per the Boerne zip codes, and only about 22,000 actually live in the city limits. So we know we have a larger community that people come to the city for information, come to us. They don't get all of our city's services, but they are tourists, so to speak, or they conduct their business in town. So with new residents, all the time I'm sharing information where as appropriate, where we can. I think my communications department does a great job on social media. We have several social media channels that they can follow. I oftentimes will recommend that they follow all of our channels. We have a news website that's tied with our city website, so they can get real-time news as things pop. If anyone is really interested to know how Boerne works and how unique they are, you can go to the city website, to the mayor's page, Mayor Ritchie's personal page on our website, and there's a link on the left that says "How do cities work?" and they can go and learn all about how Texas cities work in general. But then just scrolling around through our web page, you can see how we are uniquely different. Now, with all the growth that's happening in our area, we have a huge responsibility to balance that and manage that as best we can to sharpen the uniqueness that is Boerne, to make sure that's not lost. The state of Texas is a pro-growth state. It's a property rights state. They are very proud to be I believe it's the 10th largest GDP in the world. They have plans to be the 8th by the next legislative session. And actually, I've heard someone will throw out a goal of being the 7th by the next legislative session. So you mentioned all the migration from urban centers across the country. We're seeing it from Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, but also California and Illinois, New York. And so people are trying to get to those smaller communities that offer high quality of life. And so we're already doing that. The cat's out of the bag. Yep. So how do we balance that? How do we let people know what we stand for? So we're challenging my staff on how do we articulately do that from a more strategic messaging so that people understand what it means to be a resident of Boerne.
It's interesting you talk about the state having a goal. So here we are at the state legislator level. Then you work your way down through the hierarchy of government to the city. And really within the city of Boerne, you said 22,000 residents, Boerne, but in the zip code, 60,000. So that means you've got people living in the county surrounding the city. Help me understand and help us understand, how's that balance? Where does the service line stop for the city and get picked up by the county? And how do you work together to make sure citizens are served appropriately?
Yeah, good question. So by state law, right, I'm kind of bound with the revenue that we receive from our residents on how we can use certain revenues. Property taxes has to be spent within the city limits on those services that we provide. I can't just go and provide services to the whole county. Now, Boerne is unique. Kendall County is unique because Boerne is the only incorporated city in the whole county. There's a lot of other little, other towns. They don't have a form of government. They rely on the county to provide those services. Law enforcement, fire protection. A lot of them have volunteer fire departments. But the city of Boerne is the only paid professional department in Kendall County. So we augment that fire service in the county for the county through an interlocal agreement. An interlocal agreement is a contractual agreement between two governing agencies to provide them fire support on top of what their volunteer departments may not be able to provide. So that's an area where we can do that. We look to collaborate and partner with other entities. We have a great partnership with the county sheriff's department for dispatch services. The city provides the dispatch services for the county. For the sheriff's department, we provide it for Fair Oaks Police Department. We collaborate on animal control with Fair Oaks. We do things with the school district, with our pool and with the SROs. The school resource officers were proud to, the school district's proud to be able to say they have a SRO in every campus. Well, the ones in the city limits, the school campuses in the city of Boerne are actually Boerne police officers. And they provide service to our police department in the summertime and when there's when there's holidays, school holidays, they help out with the department. So we have, an agreement on how that works out. So it's all about how can we add services or enhance services without duplicating efforts is really what it comes down to.
I also heard you talk about there are volunteer roles in the city. So a way to get involved and a way to plug in is to volunteer to be part of city government. I see that on planning and zoning. Those are volunteers serving the community and really trying to stick to the vision of a master plan. I see it on the Board of Adjustments and several other boards that are leading the community and executing what citizens of the past have asked us to live by. How can a listener understand what those opportunities are and maybe plug in and find their role in their new city and in the city of Boerne?
So we have several boards and commissions. You mentioned a few: Board of Adjustment, Planning and Zoning. There's a Library Advisory Board. There's a Visitor Center Board. Anyone who wants to be involved in any of those, every year, I think each board member has a term of a year or two. It's different with each board. They can go to the city secretary's office on the website, and there's an application they can fill out to be involved, for the mayor or the city council to consider appointing them to a board. But even then, every now and then we have opportunities where things pop up where we might have a little subcommittee looking at something. And just reaching out to your city council person that represents your district or the mayor and let them know, hey, you'd like to be involved. They will take those names and consider those whenever there's an opportunity to help out.
Thank you for joining us on Boerne Radio 103.9. We're here visiting with Ben Thatcher, the city manager for the city of Boerne. But I've learned so much from you today, Ben, about how city government works. And then I think the light bulb moment for me is that the state is saying we want to grow. The state is attracting people to this area and not just the city centers. We are a rural county. We're still a rural lifestyle in a lot of ways. Balancing that desire of the state to be business friendly, pro-growth, with our local desire of, hey, we really like our quality of life. How do you, as you build our local Texas, how do you balance that and ensure that we're hearing everyone?
Right, that's the golden question. I think, the city was in process of a much-needed project when I got here. They were looking at modifying their whole development code, and they implemented what we call the UDC, which is a Unified Development Code. They looked at all their zoning and development ordinances, all their engineering requirements, and they updated those. Those hadn't been looked at in a long time. And so they added things that were missing. They enhanced things that had been on the books for a long time that just needed to be updated. And so I'm proud to tell you and any Boerne resident that we have an updated modern code that keeps into consideration the uniqueness of Boerne with our environmental characteristics, with the land uses we'd like to be associated or next to other land uses, and understanding that there is this growth factor that is pressed upon us by the state. And I don't want to call out the state specifically, but just because they're a property rights state, if you have a lot of property that you want to use, you have the ability to maximize that to the best of your ability. Cities can't get in the way. The only thing we can do is we can manage that. We can put some restrictions or regulations in place to get us what we think would help enhance the quality of life. And so that's what we focus on day to day. We're not going to make everyone happy. We're not going to make the development community happy. We're not going to make the people that don't want to see anything added or new growth come. So the fact is, I think the sweet spot's in the middle, and I think we're there. I think now that TxDOT's made its improvements on the interstate, you're going to start seeing some growth, and hopefully you will see it in a much different manner than what we'd seen previously.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for spending time with us today on Building Texas. Boerne Radio 103.9. My last question for you today is, what are the bright spots ahead for Boerne that you're excited about?
I'm extremely bullish on Boerne's future. I'm really excited about the bond projects that were approved. We're gonna introduce a magnificent park. That's going to be our signature park, roughly 30 acres. It's going to have a little bit of everything for everyone. Needed practice fields, an enhanced trail system, a signature playground for all abilities, playscape for youth or children of all needs, with a water feature. And then we're going to be doing these mobility project enhancements. That right there has been a long time in the making. And the fact that we have voter approval, we're implementing those plans. We're going to be putting that forward in this next year's budget to get going on the design work Hopefully we'll be breaking ground on a second fire station next year. I know we will. It's just a matter of when. And then as well as breaking ground on the park probably end of next year.
Well, Ben, thank you for the way that you're building Texas and the impact that you're having here locally and statewide. Your career's taken you across several parts of the state, and we're thrilled to have you and your family as citizens and neighbors in the city of Boerne. So thank you very much for how you're building Texas and joining us today on Boerne Radio.
Thank you, Justin.
Every week you'll learn more about what's being built so that you can understand the vision, find helpful resources, and know how to get involved. This is Building Texas, where we sit down with the most interesting people who are making an impact locally and statewide. Join us every Saturday at 9:30 right here on Boerne Radio. This is Justin McKenzie from Building Texas. Today's segment is brought to you by Das Greenhouse. Das Greenhouse is a business incubator launched here in Boerne to serve our local community. Das Greenhouse is a place where you can come to grow your idea. Our goal is to make Boerne accessible to people who are looking to grow a business, expand a business, or learn more about what's out there in their community and get involved. Visit us at dasgreenhouse.org or come by and visit us at 7 Upper Balcones Creek, Boerne, Texas.